Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Down to Business interview series. I am Tommy Jean Valmassi from Tommy Jean Coaching. And today I'm really excited because I have Laci Richter here. Hi, Laci.
Hello, Tommy Jean. Hello, everyone.
Welcome. So glad to talk to you today. So I'm in California, but where are you right now?
I'm in Georgia, so I'm like in the future of you.
Yeah.
I've already had my lunch. I've had plenty coffee. I'm way ahead of you.
Uh-oh. See, I still have my coffee here.
Yeah. I know. I used to be in California and my family and my friends were ahead of me in the future. And it's a bit of a challenge sometimes.
That's so funny. Well, let's jump in and talk about your business. So, what's your business? What do you do?
Okay. I recently in the last year started a freelance services business. I started freelance writing. And so I do anything from writing blog posts to writing marketing emails to creating images for ads. And I also manage some social media content for a couple of clients because people are just tired of doing their own social media. As you can imagine, I'm sure as a coach, you have come, it's hard to run a business and run your social media. Like, how do you do both? So I found a need in that. And I also added that as a service to my business. So I have a pretty wide range of services and I'm still trying to niche in a little bit.
Okay. And so we talked about your education a little bit before. You have an MBA, is that right?
I do. So my education background is a degree in finance, and then I have an MBA. But mostly what I've done for before I left the workforce to be a stay-at-home mom was executive administrative assistant. So I also have found a need of in this virtual space for people hiring virtual assistants. So I also do freelance virtual assistant, anywhere from booking people's travel to managing their calendar.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot about virtual assistants and how, I guess, relieving they can be. I don't know if that's the right word, but sometimes there's just too much to handle. So I can
Yeah.
see that would be lucrative. Well, so that's your background, but so how did you get into this? How did you start doing this? Is this what your ultimate goal was?
No, my ultimate goal was to be an author and write a book, which I did.
Hey.
But yeah, so I'll back up before that. My ultimate goal was always to be a mom, a stay-at-home mom. And of course, I'm going to kind of back up from the beginning. So my husband and I, when we decided we were ready to start a family, we experienced infertility for a couple years. And then we decided to go into the adoption process. And we now have two girls who are, oh my gosh, 5 years old and 8 years old now, which I can't even believe it. But during the time that we were struggling with infertility, during the time that we were struggling through this really hard process of adoption and waiting, I started writing a lot and journaling a lot. And then the next thing I know, I turned that into a book and I asked someone to publish it for me. And lo and behold, they said yes. And so now I have a published book. And I thought, okay, you want to see? So
Yeah, okay, I see it clearly now.
Refuel Your Weight is the title, and it's Find Hope and Overcome Fear While Adopting.
Wow.
So it is like a devotional style where it's like really short chapters. I bring in a lot of scripture. My faith life was really built during this time of waiting in our lives. And I just kind of go through our story of waiting, our story of adopting. And I market it to more than just waiting adoptive parents. I market it to anybody who's just in that waiting season, waiting for a new job, waiting for a spouse, waiting to get pregnant. Like you sit down and you think, oh my gosh, we are always waiting on something.
Yeah.
So I market it to that, but bring the story around. I wrote the book, I get the book published, and then I'm like, I really like to write and I would like to be paid to write. So my husband in the meantime starts a new business. I've got some family members with small businesses and I start taking on creating content for their websites, creating content for their social media, marketing. And then I was like, hey, well, this can be my business. This can be what I do, freelance services for any type of writing that people need. And so that's kind of where my business started. And I'm still trying to niche in, but I'm also wide, accepting clients. So,
Oh, that's so great. How did COVID affect you? Because one of the things that I just thought of when you talked about waiting is the pandemic made a lot of us feel like we are waiting. I was waiting for my kid to go back to school or waiting for things to open up so then we could meet in person. I know I have clients who sell things at conventions. So they were waiting for conventions. And at some point it was like, oh, we can't just wait. We have to take action. So I saw the tie in there, but did COVID affect your business in any way?
Well, I wouldn't say it didn't affect my freelance business because I hadn't started it at that point. But I guess if we back up to a year ago, I was waiting for my book to be in print, my book about waiting. And it just kind of took longer than I thought. But when it came out, it was like actually September 2020. So, we were like 6-7 months into the pandemic at that time. And I'm like, well, that's perfect timing because like you said, everyone was waiting on something. So it just kind of fueled more of my writing. It helped me with my marketing. I write a lot on my website about waiting and waiting during the pandemic, waiting with my kids out of school. I write a lot about parenting because that's now the season that I'm in. And really one of my passions is just to support parents, specifically moms, in parenting seasons, because while there's a lot of joy, we also know there's a lot of waiting to get through certain seasons and then also challenges. So I write a lot about parenting.
Oh, how exciting. Yeah. So I have a daughter who's 9. So I'm, similar age to yours.
Yeah. Super fun.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But I'm glad school's back in. Well, so I would love to know a little bit more about how you create content for other people. That sounds tricky to me. Like, are there tips and tricks that you have for people trying to make their own content, or can you tell us how you do it for other people?
Yeah. So if I just had to give out like a couple tricks, because I do have certain clients where they want to create their own content. They want to manage their own content, but they're just kind of stuck. And so I'll do like a phone call with them to help them kind of come up with a strategy. And also just give them like some quick tips on what to do. And if I had to give out let's just say I had to give out 3 tips, I would say post 3 times a week. Any more than that, people get tired of hearing from you. Any less than that, people kind of forget about you.
Okay.
Always images, never just text. I think images always capture people's attention way more than text. We're in an image world. And then I guess if I had to say a third tip, I'm kind of lost on the third tip. Because I'm kind of just trying to come up with some quick ones for how I create content. Okay, let me give you a little background on that. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll look at the person's content they've already created so I can get an idea of their voice, because when I speak and when I write, I use a lot of exclamation points. I capitalize words. I'm always excited and amazed and all this stuff. But let me give you an example. I write for my husband's business. My husband is an engineer turned handyman business. My husband would never use an exclamation point in his writing. He doesn't when he speaks to me. So if I would create content for him, I'm going to use his voice and how he writes and how he speaks as an example of how I create content for each person in their business.
Okay, yeah, what a great skill. Yeah, you can't be like, the new hammers are in. Exclamation.
Exactly. Everyone would be like, well, who's writing his content? So my goal when I'm writing other people's content is to not let the audience know that I'm writing their content. You want it to seem like it's still coming from that person. It needs to be very authentic.
Yeah. When I went to San Francisco State for college and studied radio
Okay.
and television, and I took a course where we had to write an episode of a sitcom.
Oh my gosh, fun.
And the guideline they gave us was if you put a paper over the names of the characters when they speak, you should be able to tell who's speaking and have a different tone for each person. And so it sounds similar. Like if you know, but just it, you should know, oh, okay, this is this person's voice. So
right. What a great tip. I'm going to use that. I like that very much.
there we go. With your business, how long have you been doing this, doing the content and everything?
Content, I would say, well, how it started was that even though I have a publisher for my book, they really encourage authors to the best marketing you can do is market your own book. So I kind of just pretended like they weren't even marketing for me because they were a pretty small publisher, and I just marketed my book myself. So I created my own content. So I would say I've been doing this starting with my own content since September 2020. So almost a year now.
Okay. So if you could wave a magic wand and get one thing to happen for your business, what would it be? What would you want?
I would love to sign up probably 3 to 5 clients who understood the value of someone else running their marketing content, their emails, streamlining their communication with their clients. And when I told them my rate, they would be like, absolutely, let's do it. And it would be businesses that I'm interested in and passionate about, because it's easier for me to write about those businesses and create content. And it's also just more exciting. And then I'd wave my magic wand. And once I have that core book of business, I now have people coming at me, and me, instead of me seeking business, business would be seeking me. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, it does make sense. I remember I had a relative who had a band, and the time someone called him and said, "We are interested in your band," he was like, "I can't believe someone's calling me. That's never happened." That's a big milestone, right?
Absolutely. I agree.
That would feel really good.
Yeah.
So looking at some of the other things, it's so interesting. I would love to know a little bit more about your book too. I know that we're talking about your content and media and websites, but I know a lot of people who have written a book or in the process of trying to write a book. You mentioned before you want to make money writing, but it sounds like writing a book isn't the way to make money. I guess I'm wondering, would you still encourage people to write a book?
I would still encourage people to write a book. So writing, I have a girlfriend of mine who wrote a book probably a year before me, and she actually pointed me towards the publisher I used because I was going to self-publish. And she she recommended this publisher to me. And we both kind of talked recently about this because she has now she's not writing anymore. She wrote that book, but now she has a design business. And we were in conversation, and it was like, we don't regret writing this book. I mean, being an author of a book, that feels awesome. That's a great check goal off your list. And we both had a message and a story that we were passionate about sharing with other people. So we're so happy to write this book. But what we realized is the only people who make money off of writing books are New York Times best-selling authors, selling thousands and thousands and millions of books. I'm not getting rich off of this book. My publisher literally pays me a percentage of my book. but I had a message and I had a story and I sat down and I wrote the words. And now I have this. I mean, my daughters are so proud of this book. Like they
Oh,
talked, I know it's so sweet. And they saw me reach a goal, right? So I love this book. Um, and it also brought up for me, like, it segued into my next career. So I definitely would encourage people to write the book. And the number one tip is, like, people are like, what's the tip for people who are writing a book? Write. Just start. Don't overthink it. Sit down and write. Don't overthink what and how and outline and chapters. Just start writing.
okay. Thank you for that. I kind of need a kick in the pants with that because I've been working on a book too. So
Let me give you a little kick.
thank you.
You can't write the book if you don't sit down and write the book. That's my tip.
Yeah, right. It's like reading a recipe book to learn to cook. Like, no,
Yeah,
kitchen and break some eggs.
right.
You said your husband started his own business. So you are a family of two small business owners?
We are, yeah. Just in the last year, we both started our own businesses. So last year, when we were living in California, and when COVID came around and we were on lockdown, and our family were across the country, and my husband's company was doing a big layoff, and there was a lot of paperwork to jump through. We both just kind of sat down and looked at each other and were like, okay, what do we want to do now? Do we want to stay here? Do we want to stay at our jobs? Do we need to just completely pivot? You're in California. I'm sure you know my girls were not in school.
Mhm.
That was not working for me. My family's was in Louisiana and Georgia, and we could not see them. That was not working for me or for us. So we sat down and we were like, what do we want to do next? We just decided to do a complete pivot. And he left his job of 15 years and we called it a retirement.
Okay.
He retired. And we moved across the country, and we now live in the same neighborhood as my mother-in-law. And we just did a complete family pivot. And we had some time off, and he knew he wanted to create something and do something next. He applied for a couple jobs in the area, and then my husband has been a handyman in every house we've ever moved in. And I'm like, not everyone knows how to hang a ceiling fan. And it just kind of evolved like that. And so he started his business, and I'm going to tell you what his business finds him. He never has to go looking for somebody who needs handyman services. So it's been a great experience, and a lot of changes.
Yes. Yeah, that's so exciting and bold to me, that you both started off. Plus, right now I'm like, oh, I could really use help with that shelf. I wish you guys were.
Like that laundry list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely have sought out local handymen before. So
Yeah,
that's exciting. That's good to know that business is good for him. I could
it
see.
is. I agree. It was a very bold decision. A friend of mine put it this way. She said it was it was a heart decision. We kind of just stopped using our brains for a minute, and we followed our hearts. But of course, we checked in with our brains too and made sure everything made sense financially before we decided. I don't want to encourage people to like do this huge life pivot and not think through it and just like, I was following my heart. It didn't. So, you got to sit down and just kind of figure it out and figure out what you want to do next. And I'm really proud of us because a lot of people kind of just stay in that same job, that same job, that same job. And we just decided to, you know what, you don't have to work in the same job your whole life. You can have multiple careers. I think I learned this from my dad. My dad had many, many different careers. So
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, that's so funny because I was thinking, gosh, a lot of people, myself included, I think if I had worked somewhere for a long time and was facing a layoff, I would feel sorry for myself probably and almost a little victimized, which I'm sure there's stages of layoff grief, but
Yes.
it must be empowering, I think, to say, all right, well, I'm in charge and I can decide what I want to do. And here's
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like, that's coach speak. I recognize that coach speak. That's like, I'm in charge of this. I can figure this out. I can do something different. But
yeah.
it's scary. You're right. It is.
That's funny that you said coach speak, because I told you I have a 9-year-old daughter and sometimes she gets very frustrated. Like, don't try to coach me right now.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
I have one of my best friends as a coach, and before I didn't even know what coaching was, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, you're coaching me right now. Like,
I try not to coach without permission. I will
yeah,
say that. So feel free, anyone listening to this, you can talk to me, and I promise I won't just try to sneak in some coaching.
oh, I think it's the best thing ever to have a best friend who's a coach. That's high value right there.
I think it's the best thing ever to have a husband who's a handyman.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
So what does the future hold for you? What's going on with you guys? Where you're building these businesses? What's happening?
You know, our kids are both in school. They're super happy. We live near their grandparents and their cousins. And we're both kind of, I feel like we just sort of took this like temporary space and we were like, let's just see what happens. And I keep going back to him and I'm like, do I need to get a real job yet? Do I need to get a real job yet? And I'm like, no, we're okay. We're okay. So, we keep checking in with like the situation to make sure we're okay. And I think we'll try this for a couple of years, a few years, and we'll see what happens. And then if one of us needs to go and get a real job, then we'll do it. But for now, it's really working and it feels good.
Good. That's so exciting. Well, one thing I always ask people is there another small business you want to give a shout out to? Is there somebody that you want to tell us about?
Well, I would shout out to my husband, but he's like a local handyman, so he's not going to like fly all over the country unless people would pay him to. I mean, we could come up with some travel fees. But I know you and I have a mutual friend. Her name is Laura Waldrop, and she introduced us, and she has a business, a yoga therapy business. And late last fall, I had the opportunity to work with her. And I have, you'd have to go, definitely people go on her website and find out what she's all about. But she does this combination of like yoga and physical therapy. And I've always had this reoccurring back and shoulder pain and hip pain. And I had an opportunity to work with her, and she really helped me out through some painful moments. And I would love people to go and check her out if they have any reoccurring pain or think they could use her services.
Okay. Yeah. I will post a link to Laura's
Please.
that. And I actually had that experience as well. I was having hip pain, I think just because of sitting all the time, because I was only working at home, and it really helped. So
Yeah.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to share with us, or last words before I let you go get back to your work today?
Well, if anyone's interested in my book, it is available on Amazon and also available on my website. So if you're interested in my book or my freelance services, you can go to my website, which is just www.laci, which is with an I, Laci, Richter, RICHTER.com. And I'm sure you can link that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there are any mamas, small business owner mamas out there, and you want to connect with me through social, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook is at Refuel, F-R-E-F-U-E-L by Laci Richter. And I do a lot of like complaining about being a parent, joy about being a parent, just being like really real and authentic. And I love to like form a community around being a mama. So I'd love people to check me out there.
Oh, I love that. Okay, we'll be sure to do that, and I'll link all of those.
Yes, please.
So much today. This was really fun and exciting. And you know what? I have to tell you, I'm feeling really inspired to see the way that both you and your husband just took a bold step. It can't have been easy, but you keep doing it anyway. I love it. I think it's wonderful. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Tommy Jean. Super fun.